All right, what up, what up, what up, what up? You already know what to do. It's your boy B-Phil. We back again. Learn something new. Let's jump right into it. All right, so if you recall, in this series of ours, we've been doing this, right? So let's go to the very beginning. We wanted to understand how Langchain works, basics, right? So we had a prompt, we have some LLM, then we have some output. Then we did something a little bit different where we had some prompt, we sent to the LLM, and then we had two different types of output. This was LECL. This was the standard prompts. And this was an aside on LECL as well. Now, let's talk about LangGraph. How will we do the same thing, but in LangGraph? So we're going to go here. And we have our good friend, the Langchain agent or a dinosaur, okay? We'll just say this, okay? So we have this here. Now, when we're thinking about a graph, it's exactly as you would think it would be. It's a graph, right? So you're going to need some type of state. All that means is today I'm happy, tomorrow I'm sad, right? Or right now I'm happy, in the next 5 minutes I'm sad, right? I'm changing from happy to sad. That's the same thing with a graph. Don't overcomplicate it. So we're going to start in whatever this state is, and this is the beginning state. So we'll put start here. And typically what we're going to do, and you'll see this in the demo today, we're gonna have some message that's going to be in the start state, and we're going to pass it to this LLM or this agent, right? And from there, we're going to give it some instructions and some information. And from there, it's going to have two options. It's going to be able to do some particular type of action. So, right, you have action. Right? It's going to be able to do this, or it's just not going to do anything and it's going to stop. So it's going to do some action, and this is going to be what we have before, which are the classification and add to list. We didn't talk about the add to list as much on the last one, but I'm going to add that one in just so you have an idea of like how this actually works. So what happens is we send in a message. Brandon loves cats, dogs, and we'll see that. It does some particular actions in the form of tools. So it's going to send it to some function, which is then going to do something, which is going to classify Brandon as a particular type of customer. And then it's going to say, okay, well, I need to add them to a list now, right? Because we want to make sure we're adding those qualified customers to the right email list and not the wrong ones. So we're not sending them things that they don't want to see. We don't want to bother people that don't want to be bothered. So we send them to that list, and then it has one last option. And that option is just to end the interaction. So we're going to put end here. All right. So this is pretty much our chain and our loops of logic here. So, and this can go there as well. So this is our overall graph, and this is how we're going to go ahead and get this done today. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the example here. So again, first and foremost, what you want is an Anthropic API key. So if you're unaware, you can go to Anthropic API, right? And you can go ahead and get a key there. So hopefully you saw that and you can get a key there. So I'm going to go ahead and enlarge this. And let's just go really quickly. So we had this LECL start. And so you can find this code in the previous video. It's in the GitHub repository, and I'm going to go ahead and upload this template as well so you have it all in one spot. But what we're effectively doing is we need to make sure that this functionality here, in the previous video, I haven't made it into a particular function, but here I have. So you want to go ahead and make it a function, right? So we're going to call this classify customer, and we're going to pass in some customer information as a string. And we're going to use this decorator here. And this is a tool, and effectively what this is doing is this is basically giving the function definition. So it's going to give you the description of the tool, which is just going to be these here, right? And it's going to go ahead and give the parameters of the tool, which are these here. And then, of course, it's going to go ahead and have just the actual just the definition, right? Because it's going to pass in the parameters to the definition it's going to call it. So you need to go ahead and put this decorator here, and you're going to be able to get that from Langchain core.tools, and you're going to input a tool. Okay, great. Once you've done that, you have your API key set up, in the environment variable, then you're going to go ahead and do some very hefty imports here, you'll see. So we're going to go ahead and utilize Anthropic as previously mentioned. We're going to need a human message here. We're going to need a state graph. This is going to be the underlying graph structure we're going to utilize. We need a tool message here. We need a tool executor. So when we go ahead, or the agent goes and it wants to execute that run function to call, right, to run some particular tool, it's going to use this, and of course invocation as well. This is going to be the wrapper for the actual tool though, the two tools that we're bringing in. And that leads me to the classified customer and add list. And so we're importing those from our LECL start file so we can reuse the code a bit. Then we're going to need a typed dictionary, typing annotated. We're going to need a add message function from the graph. All this is going to do is take the current state that we have. Remember the state, I'm happy, I'm sad, 5 minutes, 1 day, it changes. That's the state. So it's going to have this state that we're going to define initially, and we're going to be able to add to that state, add messages to that state, and those messages are just going to be passed around this particular graph. And so last, we're going to go ahead and have the display here so you can go ahead and see what this graph looks like visually. All right, so we're going to go ahead and specify the model. We're going to use Haiku today, keep this low cost, fast, nimble, all that good stuff. Then we're going to go ahead and create the tools. So tools, and the tools are what we specified in the previous file. Next, we're going to wrap these in the executor. So we'll read this here, execute a tool invocation, and all that invocation is going to be is the model spitting back out the parameters when it identifies it needs to use a tool. Then we're going to go ahead and bind those tools to our model, which is Chat Anthropic, so it knows it can utilize these things. Next, we're going to define the state, and this is where our type dictionary comes in. We're going to annotate a list with a particular, we're going to make it so that it can call this add message here. So think of this as the actual list, right? And this is a list of messages, right? And we're going to pass the human message in, and then anytime we need to add a particular message, right, we have this function to call add message on. You can read more about this annotated. So you can say indicates to the hypothetical runtime check module. So I'd recommend you read more about this. It's very important, but I just think of it as, okay, I have some function that is in this particular list that can be called automatically. Right. And will actually me, so we all can learn. All right, so next, then we define a function called should continue, and this is going to allow the LLM to determine if it should continue to execute or if it should end the actual call sequence. And so here we have the messages, right? So we're going to define that. We're going to find the last message, and we're going to check, is this last message an actual tool call? If it's not a tool call, we're just going to end because we don't need to do anything else. Else, we're going to go ahead and continue. Next, we're going to go ahead and define a function for call the actual model. So again, we're going to pull the state out, and we're going to go ahead and get a response from the model with the actual messages. So it's going to read all of the messages, and it's going to give us an additional message based on the current state of our execution. And we're going to go ahead and return the response in a message, right? So we're going to add this response to our messages, which is just our state here. Next, we're going to go ahead and define a function called call tools, and it's going to take in some state just like the previous functions. We're going to extract that out into a variable, and then we're going to go get the last message, right? And we're going to get the tool calls from, we're going to get the first parameter from the tool call. So tool calls can be in parallel, so we're going to get the first dictionary that contains a particular tool call. And then we're going to pull out the actual name and the arguments, and then we're going to pass this right here, tool invocation, right, to our executor, right? As I mentioned before, this is what's going to execute the actual function, and then we're going to invoke that with this action here. Next, then, and this is all right documented here. Then we go ahead, tool message, and we go ahead and create an actual message that is of the tool type, right? And then we append it to our state. And that's all the functions that we need, right? And this is going to be the loop that can continuously happen depending on what we need to do. So now let's define the actual seed message, what we're trying to get done here, right? So Brandon loves cats and is an avid parrot lover as well. He doesn't prefer dogs. Use the classification tool to classify, then list tool to add to list. Great. Next, we're going to define our graph. This is a state graph. This is the base level graph that you can define, right? There's some other ones, message graph that you can build on top of it. We're not going to talk about that today. Just worry about that this is the initial state graph, and we're going to pass a state class into it so that we can go ahead and add messages to that state. Next, we're going to go ahead and add the first node here. And this graph.add node effectively just does this, right? So we're adding this node here, right? This LLM node, or if we want to call it an agent, we can call it that, but we're going to have this LLM node. And we're just going to call this qualify agent. Next, we're going to go ahead and add the action node. And right, these here, by the way, are going to be what happened when this node is hit. So call model, as you saw previously, we're just going to call the model. We're going to send in the state into that and get some response back. And again, we're going to go ahead and have an action tool, and this is going to go ahead and execute the tool. And just so you have reference again, this is what we're adding right here, this action node. Let me zoom in a bit so you can see that really well, this action node. Okay. Next, we're going to set an entry point into the graph, right? We're entering into the graph here, right? This qualify agent, as we're calling it. Next, we're going to add a conditional edge. And this is going to be to should continue. And so this is going to be, if it's continue, go to action. If not, go to end. And so this is what this looks like here, right? This will be considered this edge here. If it's continue, right, go to this action. If not, go to this end. Awesome. So we have an add edge here. We're going to add an edge from the actual action to the agent. So this is this edge here. So from the action, it should always go to this agent, right? It should always go to this agent. Now, this probably could be a dotted line to better highlight that these are conditional. Let's do that right now. So to highlight that these are conditional edges, right? They can go to either one. And the should continue is going to allow us to do that. Next, we're going to go ahead and compile the graph. And this is just for display sake when I go ahead and run this. So let's go ahead and show this right now so you can see. So it's exactly this, right? So we have the start, we have continue that either goes here or we go to the end, and then the action is always going to point back to the qualify agent. Awesome. So then in our, we have a variable, we have a runnable, and we're going to go ahead and invoke this particular graph, and we're going to pass in our message above. And then we're going to print this all out. All right, so let's go ahead and run this. So we're going to go here. And you can see I had some runs there. And I'm going to go here and run this. We're going to wait for it. Awesome. So there may be a way to turn on verbose logging. That is a challenge for you all to go out and do. Go build something, right? But as you can see here, we got some output. So right here, as far as brands and cat lovers for dogs, use the classification tool, right? That is the first message that's coming in here. And it says, okay, let's classify Brandon. So this is the first response from the actual agent itself. And it's going to go ahead and pass in this customer information. This is the input, right? And then we see down here, we have this tool call. And it's going to go ahead and call this tool. And of course, Brandon is the worst customer for this dog e-commerce store for dog toys. And so we're not going to prefer to add him to that list, right? So Brandon loves cats and parrots, but he doesn't prefer dogs, which is the focus of the e-commerce store that sells dog toys. Therefore, he would be considered the worst customer. Okay, great. It's going to send that back to the actual model now. So just so we're clear, right? We're already here, and this ran right here, and then it sent it back here. This is what this is representing here. So based on the classification, it's going to do this, right? And it's going to have another tool call because it knows it needs to add me to a particular list. So here we go here. We have the email list selections. Oh, that's interesting. It added me to the dog and the parrot list. We added to as the most relevant for a worst customer. So we see there are some errors here, some issues. And this is where you probably want to do some error checking and tightening up that script. So it says it wants to add me there. That shouldn't be correct. So let's run that again. And we're going to see here probably the non-deterministic nature of these models. So there we go. So he should be added to the cat and parrot list, which makes sense if I'm the worst customer for the dog list. So there was some information lost in translation. This is the haiku model as well, so keep that in mind. So without further ado, I hope you really learned something from that. You can go ahead and hit that like and that subscribe button. Give me your feedback. What do you think about this video? Do you want to see more like this? Did you want to go ahead and see an additional video adding more to this particular type of use case, maybe putting a front end to it? Whatever you think, just go ahead and leave some comments, hit the like button, and most importantly, y'all, go build something. It's your boy B-Fel. I'm out. Peace.